we're trying to solve this equation. Now this is not a quadratic equation, it's a cubic equation, but we're going to solve it by using the methods for quadratic equations. And the reason is because what you can see right away is what could I factor out of all three of those terms? I could factor a g out. And if I factor a g out, I'm left with a quadratic equation. Okay? Right away, before I even go on, what's one of my solutions? There's three possible solutions. This tells you the number of solutions. I should say it tells you the maximum number of solutions. There's a maximum of 3, and right away, what can you tell me that what can you make g equal and will make this equation true?
0.
Yeah, you can make g equal 0. Clearly, g can equal 0 because then all of these terms would be equal to 0 and they would add up to 0. And that's where this, by the way, that represents a solution of 0 with the zero product property. Okay, but now what I have to do is find out the solutions to this equation, this part of the equation. So I can try factoring, I could try quadratic formula, I could even try completing the square. So now I'm just focusing right now on this. So notice I've already taken this I've already factored, no pun intended, I've already factored that in, and there's one of my solutions. Okay? This I'm hoping will factor. So I'm going to use, there's lots of different ways to do this, and I'm not going to teach you all of them, but I'm just going to do it the way I would be most obvious, it would be most obvious to me. And I'm using what's called guess and check, hoping that this factors. So if I multiply 8, actually let me show you a little trick, because this is what I would use. If I take that times that, I get negative 24. That's called the master product. And I'm looking at negative 24 and I'm asking myself the riddle, what multiplies to negative 24 and adds to negative 10? If that riddle has an answer, this factors. If that riddle doesn't have an answer, it doesn't factor. So what multiplies to negative 24 and adds to 10? Well, you could have 6 and 4. The problem is one of those has to be positive and one of them has to be negative. So those actually wouldn't work. Or you could have 8 and 3, but one of them has to be positive and one of them has to be negative. And that's not going to work either, by the way. The bigger one would have had to been negative, right? Because there's a negative number here. So that doesn't work either. How about 12 and 2? Hey, that works. 12 and 2 works, because that adds up to negative 10. So that tells me it does factor. Okay, now I'm not going to keep doing the master product method, but I'm now just going to go to the guess and check method, because I know it does factor. So if I put, now I'm going to have to take 8 and break 8 up into 4 and 2. And I'm going to have to break 3 up, negative 3 up into negative 3 and positive 1, or positive 1 and negative, or negative 1 and positive 3. So this is that, and now I'm going to guess and check. Well, this kind of gives it away, the 12 there, so I'm going to put the 3 here, and I'm going to put the 1 here. And now when I multiply, or when I FOIL it out to check if that worked, this is 2g, and that's negative 12g, and those add up to negative 10g. So there's my answer. Okay, well, it's not really my answer, it's just part of my answer, helping me find the answer, because now I have to solve this equation. Well, now I can set each one of these equal to 0, zero product property, so 4g plus 1 equals 0, or 2g minus 3 equals 0. This means that 4g equals negative 1, which means g equals negative 1/4. And this means 2g equals 3, which means g equals 3 halves. So my three answers are g equals 0, g equals negative 1/4, and g equals 3 halves. And to check them, to make sure that they're right, you can use your store button in your calculator. You can even use your graphing button on your calculator, your y equals button, and check to make sure that the zeros are the same. If you watch other videos, you'll see how to do that. Or you can just do it the old-fashioned way and plug these back in. Plug -1/4 in for G. That would be a little bit of a pain to do, but you could do that. And then when you're done with that, plug in 3/2 for G, and make sure that both of those give you the answer of 0, which they will.